Hi, everybody. Welcome to Rachel's Reviews and Hidden Gems podcast. And this is the show where once every week on Fridays, we take a look at a streaming service and tell you the hidden gems that you should check out on that streaming service. And I'm film critic Rachel Wagner, and Ryan is here.
Hey Rachel, so great to be back with you once again. And you know how people like to say that there's a place that they were no. I have like Joe Biden's speaking ability today. Do you know how people always say that they would rather be nowhere else but here?
Yeah.
I would rather be nowhere else but right here and
Oh.
right now recording this with you.
Well,
So
the feeling is mutual. It's always so much fun to get to talk with you and just to be able to talk about some hidden gems and just, I don't know, just have a good time. We have a great time.
yeah, we do every week, and
Mm,
it's becoming the highlight of my week.
yeah.
So no matter what service we're talking about, and I think today we're going to be talking about like one of my favorite, if not my favorite, service in
Hmm.
terms of Kanopy, because it's definitely a sleeper hit.
Yeah, it really is. And the reason why we thought about this was because we have Sundance coming up. So I just have sort of independent features on the mind. And really, I think you could probably make an argument that almost anything in Canopy is a hidden gem because it's not like they have, your big blockbusters or kind of things on this service. And so it's more classics, Criterion type releases, independent films, documentaries, things like that.
Yeah, and it's all for free with a library card. So, and this is what I say to people all the time. If you're just getting done with like the classics that everybody knows, like Citizen Kane and
Hmm.
Lawrence of Arabia and Godfather, and you want to go see like more movies from like the 50s up to the early 70s, then I'd say check out Canopy because it's like a one-stop shop. You can find
Yeah.
Chaplin movies on there. You can find Kurosawa's work. You can find like Touch of Evil from Orson Welles on there and The Stranger. So it's not too
Yeah.
obscure, but it's like take the person or the director or the movie that you know, and this is the stuff that they've also done.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they have some new films too, and there's films that I didn't necessarily recommend on like on Rotten Tomatoes, but for free, I think they might be worth your time. Like they were mixed bags, they were flawed, but they still had some interesting parts about them. Like they had on there, I noticed Judy and Punch, which I thought was a really interesting premise, not some interesting performances. It didn't quite work for me, but again, for free, it's definitely I think worth checking out. So it's all about your kind of, I don't know, your spectrum here of kind of if you they have a lot of really interesting stuff that some of it is new, some of it is old, and it's my favorite price, free 99.
Indeed. And Canopy's slogan is thoughtful entertainment. So, you know,
Yeah.
catapulting off of your feeling of, oh, it's thought-provoking stuff.
That's right. So let's dive in. Let's talk about our picks. So the first one for me was actually on PBS a couple of years ago. This was like 2007 to 2009. They did all the Jane Austens except for Pride and Prejudice. They did new versions of all of the Jane Austen main novels, and except for, yeah, like I said, they didn't do Pride and Prejudice because I think the thought was with the Colin Firth version, you can't do it any better. That's it. That's done. And so what are you doing? But one of the films that is available on Kanopy is Northanger Abbey, and this is her least adapted novel that we've never really gotten a real like feature film of Northanger Abbey, and I don't understand why because I think it is super cinematic. It's got a sense of humor to it. It's less sort of, I don't know, period piece stodgy, if people have a problem kind of with that, than her other books. And so I don't know. I think that it has a lot of potential, and should be adapted as a feature film, but this version is still really good, starring Felicity Jones and Carey Mulligan are both in this, and she plays a young Felicity Jones plays a young lady who who's like in love with Gothic novels. So with creepy mansions and dukes and knaves that are up to no good, and this kinds of novels, and so she loves those, and she starts to think that the abbey that she's visiting, the manor is that there's ghosts and there's other things going on, and she gets kind of spooked, and she thinks there's murder and bad stuff happening, and it's really cute. It's really good, and of course there's romance, and so if you like period pieces and Jane Austen, you got to check it out.
So is the house actually haunted, or is that a spoiler?
It's not actually haunted, but there's lots of things because she's so into these novels that she gets kind of spooked.
Oh.
And but this is only 93 minutes. It's not that long. Like for if you're thinking like, oh, her, Jane Austen's 5 hours long or whatever. It's not. And so yeah,
Yeah, I know, because I read Wuthering Heights late last year,
yeah.
and I enjoyed the book quite wholeheartedly, but it was like, this is hard work.
Yeah, I mean, in Wuthering Heights, they're both so unlikable, both of Heathcliff and Catherine, but they're so passionate and it's written so well that I think it overall works.
Hmm.
But they're just so awful to each other.
Across
This is,
generations too. It's like,
I
guys, can't
know.
we all just get along?
And that ending feels so tacked on to me. I feel like the publisher made her write that because it doesn't feel like at all in theme with sort of the rest of the book. But anyway, that's Wuthering Heights. This is Northanger Abbey. This is a lot sweeter and just kind of meant to be sort of funny and a lark. So if you enjoy that kind of thing, then you'll really like it. So what's your first pick?
So my first choice is from late 2013, early 2014, depending on what year you saw it in theaters, and it is called Under the Skin. This stars Scarlett Johansson as a woman who is seemingly not of this world. She goes from town to town on the Scottish countryside. She takes men into her van and seemingly passes them off into a mysterious void. And I know it's a very strange premise, and yeah, it exactly is. This is an A24 movie, which again, A24 is like that studio now that deals with the very tricky, and I don't want to say tricky premises, but like very, very abstract kind of things,
Yeah.
and that goes double for Under the Skin. Why I do recommend it is for a couple of things. Number one, the cinematography, because this movie looks absolutely beautiful. Jonathan Glazer, who directed it, captures the Scottish countryside in a very beautiful way, and the void itself, you don't see it too much, but when you do see it, it's you feel very scared of it because of just how empty it is, and that's as far as I'll go, because this is one of those movies that I feel like you really need to be as completely separated from any trailers or anything as possible. You just need to go in as blind as possible. And reason number two is Scarlett Johansson, because she's cool and she's good in most of the things that she's in, and it's no different here. You really don't understand why she is doing the things that she is doing. The movie feels like jazz. You just kind of run with it at a point. And at the end of the day, I can see why people wouldn't like it, but I actually saw it at an art house theater, and there was a special, like, there was a thing at the end where the guy running it was like, all right, let's discuss. And everyone was like, what in the blue hell did we just watch? But it's a very fond experience for me. And I think this movie is very worthy of a discussion, and that's
Yeah.
why I do recommend it.
I haven't seen it, but I have heard good things from a lot of different people, and that it is one of those ones that you have questions about and you talk about. And so I always appreciate those kind of films. That's very Sundancey. So it's a good suggestion for this week.
Yeah, and before we move on, I should just warn everybody, if you do watch this movie, you need to be like mentally prepared. Like
Yeah.
you can't go into a movie like this like, I got some work I got to do. I'll just throw on Under the Skin in the background. Like, no, this is a movie where you need to sit there and like
Yeah.
take notes for like
Right.
every scene that happens. Not that there's anything wrong with that. It's just
Yeah.
you need to be prepared for what you're about to experience.
Right. Yeah, you have to know what you're getting yourself into. And by the way, if people want to participate in Sundance this year, it's all virtual and only $15 tickets. Not too bad. So if you take a look and see what is out there and if there's anything that looks interesting to you, and then they have a day pass as well. So if people are interested, it's pretty cool to have it be available to everybody this year that wants to attend. And I'm going to be covering it quite a bit. And we have me and Austin did a preview episode on the podcast. Me and Austin Burke talking about some of the ones we're looking forward to. So there's a lot of good stuff going on there. My next choice is a documentary, and it is called Echo in the Canyon. And I feel like I've talked about it before on Hidden Gems, but I didn't have any record of it. So if I have, forgive me. But this is a documentary that is about the Laurel Canyon area of Los Angeles that in 1965, that was sort of this home base for a ton of awesome rock bands. And they have a ton of original footage of them just playing in their homes and in the recording studios down there. And this includes people like the Mamas and the Papas, the Beach Boys, the Byrds, Buffalo Springfield, like just a ton of great bands from the 1960s. And so I think if you like any of those bands and you like music and learning about how music was created, I think you'd really enjoy this documentary. There's a whole part where they stage this revival concert with modern bands and singers singing these old songs with Jacob Dillon and Regina Spektor and Cat Power and sort of these new singers. And to me, that was the weakest part of the documentary because I wasn't watching it for them. I was watching it for these classic groups to hear from Eric Clapton and, people like that. But it's not like bad. It's just not as interesting to me as like the older stuff. But maybe some people will like the newer stuff better. But I don't know. It just wasn't as interesting to me. But nevertheless, definitely, I think worth a watch.
Yeah, I grew up with a lot of these bands. You mentioned Jacob Dylan. Any relation to Bob?
Yes, his son. He's his son,
That's what
and
I
he's
thought.
he's the one that definitely like got this thing made because he's the narrator. I think he's like a producer. He's I think he's a big kind of force behind, and I think he's probably a reason that you were able to get so many interviews with people that don't normally do interviews because of his connection uh, to uh, to Bob Dylan and to the whole scene. But you have interviews with Ringo Starr, like I said, Eric Clapton, Graham Nash, Jackson Brown, just that whole group. So it's worth it, yeah, just to hear from all of them and hear that. See, they got so much old footage. It's amazing.
Yeah, you would be surprised at how much people filmed back then. I think
Yeah.
I remember this one interview with Orson Welles on Dick Cavett's show, where Dick Cavett casually dropped the line of, "People nowadays would rather make film than make love."
Yeah, that's interesting. That's true. I guess that's true.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I was reading the list of people who were in this, and I saw Jackson Brown's name, and I was like, oh wow, he's in this, because my dad and I actually saw him live at the Peabody Auditorium in Daytona Beach, and it was
Hmm.
awesome because my dad and I listen to his
That sounds
songs like
fun.
would listen to his songs all the time. And of course, Eric Clapton is a legend. Ringo Starr, we all know who he is. Brian Wilson, we all know who he is. So it's
Yeah.
strange that I never found this, but now I have. So there we go.
Yeah. And Jacob Dillon, he's like a legit performer. He had a band called the Wallflowers, which had like quite a few hits. So we had one song called One Heartbeat that was a pretty popular song. So he's established himself as a singer. So what do you have next?
So my next choice, this may be a particularly controversial choice because of who is behind the camera on this one, and I'll explain it as I go along. But my second choice is Apocalypto. Now,
Mhm.
I should get out ahead of this right now and say that this was directed by Mel Gibson, and this was released in or around the same time as Mel Gibson made some very insensitive comments that I certainly do not agree with. But many years removed from all of that, I watched this movie a few years ago, and I was absolutely blown away by it. I'm not saying that this is a movie for everybody, because it more than certainly is not. Mel Gibson makes very visceral and raw films like Passion of the Christ, Hacksaw Ridge, and I could go on, but Mel Gibson makes very Mel Gibson movies. However, Apocalypto may be among his more underrated movies. It takes place during the dying days of the Mayan Empire, and this young man who lives outside the empire is kidnapped by the empire and is brought in, and he basically has to escape. That's the main premise without going too deep into the quicksand, because there's a lot of quicksand. Uh, I should also say that this movie is told in all of ancient Mayan, so you all should be prepared for that. And I think I may have turned some of you off by that already. But if you give the movie a chance, I think you will be surprised, because the cinematography and the action is filmed just super duper well. Mel Gibson knows exactly what he's doing when he's filming action, and the jungle chase in the last third is worth the ticket price by itself. There's a scene with a snake. You will not see it coming, but it will be just like one of those scenes you're like, geez, oh wow. And just it's one of those that you won't see it coming, and when you do, it's going to grow some hair on your chest. So I will say that this movie is not for everyone. Mel Gibson is not for everyone. I totally get that, but if you do give Apocalypto a chance, then I think you might be surprised.
Yeah, I have never seen this one, but I've heard that it is definitely a underrated. And I mean, I've always been a little nervous about the the violence in this movie, so that's why I haven't seen it. But yeah, I've heard that it is really good.
Minus one scene, this is one of Mel Gibson's more toned down scenes. And I won't say which one, but if you know anything about Mayan history, then you can pretty much put two and two together from there.
So my next pick is another one that I felt like we talked about before, but I'm losing track, to be honest, about what I talk about on which podcast and what's going
We
on. So
You
I
do
don't
run a
know.
lot of podcasts, so we do talk about a lot of movies on here. So
But
thank God for Letterboxd to a certain
yes.
extent.
So we're talking about Hunt for the Willer People. This, I think, is the second film or the first film from Taika Waititi. I can't remember which one's first, What We Did in the Shadows or this. Yeah, What We Did in Shadows is first, but
Yeah,
then
this
this.
was second.
Yeah, and so, but this is such a charming film, and I think that it shows how great Taika Waititi is working with children, because not only is this great, then Jojo Rabbit is so great, and the actor, the Julian Dennison in this is really great in this, and I think he's kind of not great in Deadpool 2 and in the Christmas Chronicles 2. I did not like his performance in those
Well,
films. So
Deadpool 2 is hard work, so that was not his fault.
I guess, but he was so flat in that movie to me. But so I think he has a way of getting really great performances from child actors, Taika Waititi, and that is definitely the case here. And it's basically about this man played by Sam Neill who is off the grid, and he ends up kind of uh, getting sort of stranded with his foster son, uh, played by Julian Dennison, and they're out in the forests, and there's this kind of police chase looking for them. It's charming, super super charming. It's got Taika Waititi's sense of humor. So if you like movies like Thor Ragnarok, then you'll enjoy this. And of course, this is much more independent, but it looks absolutely beautiful. There's New Zealand forests, absolutely gorgeous. So it's funny, it's sweet, it's very enjoyable.
Yeah, I think Taika Waititi is slowly gaining a reputation as being one of our best directors going. I don't think he's had a single like bad movie that he's been involved with, like from his very beginning of What We Do with the Shadows up to now with Jojo Rabbit. I mean,
Yeah,
he played Hitler. Like that's a big risk.
yeah,
But he somehow managed to pull it off. And in terms of Hunt for the Wilder People, this was unfortunately one of those movies that I missed, not due to any reason other than this was a very small movie and it didn't get above like
yeah.
a certain ceiling of people who were actually going to see it in theaters. But now that it's on Kanopy, I really don't have an excuse not to watch it.
Yeah, and I think if you're sort of stressed out, if you're wanting something that'll make you feel good about the world, then this is that kind of movie. It's just so sweet and has a good heart to it. So it'd be a good one if you're having a bad day and you need something to watch. Hint, hint, hint. But yeah. So what's your next pick?
So my next pick is a bit it's a bit out there. It's from 2016 and it is called Captain Fantastic. This was directed by Matt Ross, who is primarily known as being a character actor. He was in movies like American Psycho and The Aviator, so he's more known as an actor than a director. But in Captain Fantastic, it tells the story of this family whose patriarch is played by Viggo Mortensen, Aragorn, by the way,
Mm-hmm.
and they all live in a very secluded part of Oregon. They don't go into the outside world. They keep to themselves. They're very secluded in that way. However, due to a tragedy that I will not spoil, they are forced to leave their seclusion and enter the real world. This could have very much been just a standard, oh, like, and they like, is this a clock? Like a very dumb fish out of water kind of thing. But this movie I think is actually really really good. Viggo Mortensen, if you just know him for the Lord of the Rings movies, he's cool in those, but he's also good in a lot of other things, like and especially in this. And there's also other actors like George McKay. He was Schofield in 1917. He was the best part of that whole movie. So he's getting a lot of traction nowadays. But I was loving him in Captain Fantastic, and it is very it's very cliche in terms of people going from one place to another and trying to figure out a new world. But the strength of the cast and the dialogue and some of the jokes are actually quite good. So it's a bit off the beaten path, just like the family in this movie. But if you give it a chance, I think it's definitely for you.
Yeah. So this one, Vigo actually got an Oscar nomination for this role, and I think he does a good job. I mean, if you compare it to The Glass Castle, which I hate, which is a very similar story. This, I think, they aren't as quite as lionizing of him as The Glass Castle is. They don't try to pretend that he's really even that good of a person for what he's doing to his family. And I think the girls call him out on it, particularly in the script, that of what he's doing. And so I appreciate that. I think that it definitely has sort of a quirky, almost Wes Anderson-y kind of style to it that they're trying to do. Yeah, so I'd recommend it. I think it's worth a watch. It has a style to it and is fun, and I appreciate, like I said, they don't try to make him seem like a hero.
This is your classroom while he is taking all of their money to drink.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Oh, I hate The Glass Castle so much.
We should do like a Mystery Science Theater 3000 style viewing of it just so we can tear it apart.
I was so angry when I saw it. I've never been more angry, I don't think, ever in a theater. If I wasn't in the middle of the row, I probably would have walked out. I was so mad.
I probably would have.
I was stuck right in the middle.
I probably would have been like, pardon me, pardon me, pardon me, pardon me, pardon me, pardon me.
Oh, wow. Yes. So Captain Fantastic, definitely better than that. That's for sure. All right. Well, my next pick is admittedly maybe a bit of a stretch because it is one of the most beloved Best Picture winners ever. But I think you can probably make an argument for any movie that's pre-1960 as being a hidden gem because certain people just don't see older movies. And so I wanted to talk about The Best Years of Our Lives. This was actually on my Blind Spot series last year. I hadn't seen it. It is very long, so I think that's part of the reason why I hadn't seen it, because it kind of, just not every day that you're looking for a 172-minute, post-World War
meditation on post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's a
and
long...
and how returning soldiers have to reintegrate into civilian life.
That's right. But no, this is a really great film. It's about this family and how they respond to World War II. Well, particularly about 3 World War II veterans and then one family that gets impacted as well. And Myrna Loy, Friedrich March, Teresa Wright, really just an incredible cast. This is directed by William Wyler, and he was a great director. And you have lots of Oscars that it won. It won Best Picture, Best Director, Best Actor, and Best Supporting Actor to Harold Russell. And he was a soldier, real life fraternity soldier with he's one of only 2 non-professional actors to win an Oscar in the history of the Academy. Yeah, so he doesn't have. So I just wanted to see if I was if there was a right way to say it, but no, he has 2 artificial arms. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, let's go with that.
He has 2 artificial arms, and he's one of the only, I guess you'd say, handicapped individuals to win an Oscar. So that's really cool. But it's just he has a great performance. It's a devastating performance. And you really feel like you're with these people and experiencing this. It doesn't feel like it's from 1946. It feels very relevant and modern. It's really good.
Yeah, I actually covered this movie for the AFI project, #cheap plug. But when I watched this movie for the first time, I was completely blown away just by how, like you said, Rachel, how relevant it all felt. Despite the fact that it took place at the end of World War II, you could literally take this for Korea, Vietnam, like anything involving the Middle East in the 2000s and the 2010s, and it'd still be just as relevant.
Yeah.
All of the acting in this movie is incredible. Dana Andrews, like you said, he has my favorite moment of the movie when he encounters the guy who is on Homer's case. He's like, "You lost your hands for nothing," and he just punches him through the candy counter, and then he just takes his apron off, and he's like, "Yep, I know I'm fired," and then he throws it down, and I'm like, "Yeah, you got fired for the right reason."
Yeah.
And then of course of and then of course Harold Russell is just, his story arc is absolutely heartbreaking just throughout this whole thing, but without spoiling anything, he does get to win at the end, which, I mean, yay for that.
Yeah.
Friedrich March is also awesome. Like, he had previously won an Oscar for playing Jekyll and Hyde in the original Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So he had quite a range. He was one of those actors that could go from horror to serious stuff and everything in between and just absolutely crush it every time. And then William Wyler, who directed it, would go on to direct Ben-Hur, which is one of the best Bible movies ever made, and he would win another Oscar for that.
Yeah.
William Wyler is subtly one of the best directors that I feel like we never really talk about, or at least off of film Twitter and Letterboxd.
Yeah. And it doesn't have that squeaky feeling of, say, like a Frank Capra kind of a film, which I love those films, but this is pretty messy, and there's a lot of really flawed characters that that you don't have the kind of like heroic journeys that you see, like say in a Frank Capra type of movie or something like that we think of from the 50s in particular that we think of.
Yeah, Friedrich
Messy
March's
from that.
character goes through a nasty separation with his wife, and you
Yeah.
see it, and it's just like, good Lord, like she's being cruel.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's definitely worth checking out. What's your next pick?
So my next pick is along the same lines. It is a war movie, but it's from 2015, and it is called Eye in the Sky. This was directed by Gavin Hood, who unfortunately directed X-Men Origins Wolverine. Spoiler alert, this movie is much better than X-Men Origins Wolverine. But this movie is significant because this was Alan Rickman's final role before his passing. This released, I want to say, like summer of 2015, and he had passed away sometime before that, which is rather unfortunate. However, he did go out on a high note. It tells the story of a military commander played by Helen Mirren, who is ordered to drop a drone strike on a known terrorist. However, as the drone strike is about to happen, this little girl runs in and complicates things because she is related to this terrorist. And so the debate begins. Do they do it and get rid of the terrorist, or do they wait for the girl to leave and then do it? It's like 12 Angry Men, but like set in the Middle East, and no jury duty, if that makes no sense. But it's a moral dilemma of should you or shouldn't you, and that's where the strength of this movie is. The cast in this is great. Helen Mirren, we all know who she is. She's great. Alan Rickman is really good in this in his final role. Aaron Paul, who was from Breaking Bad and El Camino, and was in the most recent season of Westworld. He's in this, and he's really good. This is one of those war movies that is more cerebral than others, and it may be a little long in the tooth at times, but its strength lies in the question of, do we capture this terrorist or do we kill him? And it's good back and forth between all three of the main characters, and that's why I recommend it.
Yeah, I gave this movie 3 stars. I'm not sure why I didn't give it higher. I can't remember. It's been so while since I saw it, but I guess still a positive score. The For Eye in the Sky, and I think the performances I remember really enjoying, and there's definitely some tense moments, especially with that girl that's trying to sell her bread while they're trying to get her to get out of there. That I think I did say in my review that this movie should not be rated R. I didn't understand why it was rated R.
Yeah,
So that
that's so bizarre. It's like some movies get rated R because they say like a couple too many F bombs, but then there are movies like Drag Me to Hell from Sam Raimi who are PG-13, and yet that has a literal dragging of a person like straight to hell. So so the MPA's rating system is a little like it's a little
yeah.
shot guide.
Yeah, but it's definitely got good performances. Helen Mirren is always good, even in bad movies, she's good.
Hmm.
And so, yeah, I think it's a tight little movie that definitely worth seeing on Kanopy. So I think it's a good choice. Well, my last choice is, again, a bit of a stretch for a hidden gem because it did get an Oscar nomination and it's pretty popular in the world of film Twitter, at least, but I don't know how popular it is outside. But nevertheless, I'm going to suggest it anyway. We're going to talk about Lady Bird. This is from 2017. It got nominated for Best Picture. And this is by director Greta Gerwig, stars Saoirse Ronan, and Laurie Metcalf in an absolutely incredible performance as her mom. I think actually I feel much more for her mom than for Lady Bird.
Mm.
That's just because of my age. I don't know. Um, because Lady Bird is a lot. She's this disgruntled teenager that sometimes I hate in movies, but there's just enough for me to put up with her. I really like her her relationship with with Lucas Hedges. I don't know why I almost said Jason Hedges. What is that?
That's
Lucas Hedges.
his older brother, Jason.
Lucas Hedges, I think that he always does a great job. He's such a good young talent. Timothy Chalamet is also good in it. It's got uh, a really nice kind of message about trying to understand the people that we are related to, trying to see them for more than just the stern mother and whatever the kind of thing. And I feel like that I don't really understand what Lady Bird's problem is because her mom is pretty chill, in my opinion. She's letting like her brother and his girlfriend live with them and is pretty nice, I think. But when you're a teenager, I guess your mom is just not cool. But by the end, she starts to realize, oh, maybe her mom is kind of cool and is actually nice. And I think the ending with the letter and everything with her going off and them, that what happens with their relationship, I think actually kind of really feels true and works. And so yeah, I enjoy it. I think it's a good movie that does a lot of things that normally I maybe don't like in movies, but it does it pretty well.
Yeah, I remember seeing this movie in theaters and I wasn't super crazy about it. I remember my exact reaction when I walked out of it was, "Yup, that's either going to be nominated or win Best Picture at the Academy Awards." I didn't hate it. Don't get me wrong. I like Saoirse Ronan as an actor, especially since I saw her in Hana, one of her first movies, and that was
Yeah.
really underrated. So anything revolving her, I'm inclined to watch it. But even still, I think I should watch this again at some point because I remember liking it, but being like, "This is very much an Oscar movie," and
Yeah, I think that's fair, and I would actually agree. I just think if you watch it from the perspective of the Laurie Metcalf character more than the Lady Bird character, I think it's much better. If you watch it thinking of that, because she is such an interesting character, her mother, I think, and so well written and so well acted that to me she's more interesting than the Lady Bird character.
yeah, I can definitely agree with that.
Hmm. So if you haven't seen it, or maybe you thought, oh, this is overrated, give it a shot. It's actually, I think, pretty good. It's not my favorite movie in the world. And that was a pretty strong year for movies, 2017. And so, with it, you had Dunkirk, you had Get Out, Baby Driver, Call Me by Your Name, Coco. It was a pretty good year. Shape of Water won that year.
I know you
I
don't
think.
like it, but I love it. Blade Runner 2049.
No, it's not that I don't. I don't. I appreciate it. It's just Blade Runner makes me sleepy.
I will turn you into a fan.
So, and Wonder Woman came out to this. It was a good year, 2017 for movies. Greatest Showman.
The movie that somehow won't die.
That's right. So, what's your last pick?
So my last pick is a bit of a hard left from contemporary drama of about a teenage daughter and a mother to a full-blown zombie movie. It's Day of the Dead from 1985. Night of the Living Dead is seen by many as one of the greatest, if not the greatest, zombie movie ever made. Dawn of the Dead is seen as one of the best horror sequels ever made. And this is Day of the Dead. And nobody really talks about it, even in the horror community. However, for a certain group of people, this is the best of the Dead movies. And in my opinion, it does rank up there. It's like a perfect zombie trilogy of night, dawn, and day. Wow, that actually connected. I just realized that. But in Day of the Dead, it tells a story of the zombie apocalypse has happened. There's like few humans left, and zombies are pretty much just going everywhere. But there's this deranged military captain who is trying to create one final stand against the zombies. That's pretty much that plot in a nutshell. But where the movie lies in the strength department is in the commentary. George A. Romero had a surprising level of social commentary to his movies that wasn't overt, like in your face, but was present enough to where if you were looking for it, you could find it. That's why in Dawn of the Dead, it takes place in a mall, and it has been long speculated that it was meant to be his take on mall shoppers. They're basically zombies. Well, in Day of the Dead, without giving away too much, the zombies are presented as more human-like and smarter than the actual humans. And it's more nuanced than that, but again, I'm trying to keep this as spoiler-free as possible. This is one of those movies I think you should just go in completely blind without seeing too many trailers. But really, even if you take out the commentary side of things, this is a very well-made movie. George A. Romero had a certain way of making his movies look really clean for how small their budgets were. And the gore effects were done by Tom Savini, who is a legend in the horror genre, as an actor and as a makeup artist. And his gore effects are on full display here. It's juicy stuff. So just be prepared if you do see it. But yeah, Day of the Dead is more than underrated in terms of horror threequels, because if it's a third movie in a horror series, it's usually bad. But Day of the Dead is the exception rather than the rule.
Yeah, so it's in color. This one is supposed to black and white, like Night of the Living Dead.
This is in color as well as Dawn.
Okay. Yeah, I've only seen the first one. I've only seen Night of the Living Dead.
And I was honestly surprised that you did.
I'm trying to get out of my comfort zone sometimes, and I actually liked it. I thought it was pretty good. So I'll have to maybe someday check out these other ones. That I'm pretty weak when it comes to horror movies, but I keep trying to push my comfort level bit by bit. So it sounds like one that might be worth watching. So very cool.
Well, the good thing about most of Romero's movies is that despite the genre that they're in, there is more to them than meets the eye. So even if you're not a big gore fiend, I say you could get in touch with it just based on there's a deeper meaning to all of this. It's not just zombies for the sake of zombies. There's meaning to all of it, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, cool. Good. All right. Well, we certainly gave you 5 each, 10 very eclectic movies to watch on Kanopy. So you get 10 choices every month on Kanopy. So there you go. Perfect. So thanks so much for listening. Let us know your thoughts on any of these films. And if you've been watching anything on Kanopy, we'd love to hear what it is. And Ryan, where can people find you?
They can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd at RyanCam20. Then there's, of course, my YouTube channel, which is just called Ryan Cam. We are recording this on a Tuesday, which means yesterday, Monday, I dropped my AFI project video for The Gold Rush, and it was one of the more unique videos that I've done in a while. Tomorrow, Wednesday, I'll be dropping my video for Nashville, the Robert Altman film, and then this coming Sunday, I will be reviewing all of the Alien movies. That means Alien, Aliens, Alien 3, Alien Resurrection, Prometheus, and Alien Covenant. So there's a lot to look forward to. And then I'm continuing my I Finally Watched series where I'm working my way through the Ghibli movies. And I'm going to be bringing back my TV show vlogs and talking about WandaVision and Twilight Zone. So there's a lot of stuff coming to the channel. If you haven't checked me out, please do. I put a lot of time and effort into it. And I'm so happy because I crossed 120 subscribers. I'm actually at 122 at the time of this recording. And I know it's not much. It's certainly not nowhere in Rachel's shoe closet when it comes to subscriber numbers, but I'm very happy with where the channel's going, and it's just going to get higher and higher from here. So if you haven't checked me out, please, I'd be grateful.
Yes, you should all subscribe. It's really good stuff. And you can find me at Rachel's Reviews, all over social media, iTunes, YouTube, and on Rotten Tomatoes. So check that out. And I'm going to be covering Sundance coming up. So make sure you're subscribed. And then also you can find me at Hallmarkies Podcast, where we have lots of interviews and reviews of all things rom-com and holiday and everything over there. It's really fun. And thanks so much, everybody. And we'll talk to you all next week. Bye, everyone.
Bye.